Notion is really up in their automations game, and this week they just launched a brand new feature called database automations, which lets you do some really cool stuff, such as doing native time tracking directly inside of Notion. That's right, we are hopping directly into examples. So in this database, I've got a little automation that will create a timestamp in this completed date property anytime my status on a task goes from in progress to complete. And then I'm gonna be able to see how long the task took, which might be nice for some time tracking purposes. Let me show you how it works. If I alt-click this little status property, I'm gonna set this to done, and in a couple of seconds, I'll have my timestamp pop it into completed, like that, and we can see that this task took 2 hours and 42 minutes and 0 seconds. But automations get a whole lot cooler than that, my friends. What about creating default tasks whenever I create a brand new project inside a project database, such as a content projects area where I might have YouTube videos I'm working on? Well, if I go ahead and add a brand new project, I'm gonna see all of these default tasks popping in just a second. And not only do I have these default tasks, but I have assignees for those tasks automatically set. And if I go into any of these projects, I'll be able to see all of those tasks directly in them. I've got my assignees set up. So this automation is allowing us to do a lot of really cool things directly inside of Notion auto-magically. Now, Notion's database automations feature is essentially an if this, then that style automation feature, where something is gonna happen inside of your Notion workspace. Maybe you create a new page or you edit a property of an existing page, and that is going to trigger one or more actions that are going to automatically take place. So let's just dive right into this feature and I'll show you exactly what we're working with here. And then we are going to get right into some examples so you can see exactly how to build some useful automations yourself. So right here at the top of our databases feature, we now have this little lightning icon, and I can click that to open this little automations menu. If I open a new automation, I've got a few different options here. I can name my automation. I can say that it's for pages inside this entire database, or I can limit the automation to just one view of the database. But the real magic happens in the trigger and the action sections. So first and foremost, I have a couple of different triggers that I can set up for each automation. The first one is page added. So basically anytime a new page is added to this database, it's going to trigger the automation. Or I can use the property edited trigger, and there are all kinds of different properties that can work with this. A lot of them are just going to trigger anytime any edit happens. So if I typed one letter in the name property, that would be a trigger. Some of them have some additional options that we can set, like multi-selects and select properties and status properties. For those, we can get a bit more granular and trigger only when a specific choice is edited or selected. So those are triggers. And then we have a few different action steps that we can do here. We can add new pages to this database or to any other database where we have edit access. We can edit pages in an existing database. Later on in the video, I'm going to show you why, at least right now, I don't think you should be playing with this particular feature of database automations, at least with important databases. It's easy to mess things up, so check the timestamps if you are curious about that. We can send helpful Slack notifications to our connected Slack workspace, or we can edit additional properties of the same page that triggered the automation. So I want to jump right into examples, and we're going to start building some useful automations that you might actually want to use yourself today so you can see exactly how this works. Now, while I'm navigating over to the little worksheet that I've created here, I will note a couple of different things. Number one, I have turned this into a template. It is in the description down below, so you will be able to duplicate this into your workspace and at least try the automations out. But number two, on a related note, this is one of Notion's first mostly paid features. So if you're on a paid Notion account, you will be able to create, edit, delete, and use automations. If you're on a free Notion account, the only thing you can currently do is use automations that come with Notion templates or delete them. Now, fear not, there's still the Notion API with tons of apps out there like Pipedream and Make.com and Zapier. So we can still build basically any of these automations just in a bit more roundabout way for free. But if you are on a paid Notion account, maybe you're working with a team and you've upgraded, you are going to be able to build these directly inside of Notion itself. And I'm anticipating over the next coming months, we are going to see additional features added to these database automations. So let's dive directly into our first example here. I want to have a little date completed automation for tasks in this simple tasks database. So essentially what would happen here is when I switch my status to done, the completed date property is going to get a date and timestamp. And then I've got a little formula here that I've written up, and it's basically going to calculate the number of days between the completed timestamp and the due timestamp. Now this would be useful because you might not know this, but humans in general are quite bad at estimating how long things are going to take. In fact, I made a whole video about this over on my main channel. I will link to that in the description down below. But one way you can get better at these time estimates and hence become more productive is tracking the actual completion date and then comparing that against your planned due date for your tasks. And when you have a little completion gap property like this, you'll be able to see, oh, I did this 17 days after I thought I was gonna get done. Maybe I should revise my estimates in the future. So how would you create an automation like this? Feel free to pause the video and picture Jeopardy music in your head if you want to think through it, but I'm going to dive right in. Basically, I'd click this little automations area right here, the little lightning icon once more. I'll go to new automation. This time I'm actually going to name my automation so I can easily identify it as we're creating more and more. We're going to have a nice directory of them. So I'm going to call this, let's just say date completed. That's pretty descriptive. And I'm gonna have this trigger for all views in this entire tasks database. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this here at tasks. And all I need to do is set a trigger and an action. So for my trigger, I'm going to add a trigger and I'm going to say when the status property is edited to the complete group, and notice that status properties have both these hard-coded groups to do, in progress, and done, along with these editable properties within those groups, so done, in progress, not started by default, I'm going to check the complete group here. So basically when status is set to the complete group or any option within it, I'm going to go to my completed date property here, and I'm going to select this now dynamic value. So right here at launch, the date property has two different dynamic values that we can set. It has now, which is going to include the date and the time. It has today, which is just going to include the date. And then it has pick a date, which would be like a hard-coded date. Personally, I'm having trouble seeing a whole lot of usefulness in putting a specifically hard-coded date here. So right now, I think the most useful thing to do is to use either now or today. And I'm hoping in the future, we are going to get dynamic date references. Like maybe I could put a date in a formula and choose that date. That would be pretty cool. But for now, I'm gonna go with now, and I will hit create. So now to demo this, if I go ahead and set mow lawn from in progress to done, then in a couple of seconds, we're going to get the now stamp popping up in completed, and we can see the completion gap is 3 days. Now, this is powered by a Notion formula, and if you are curious, we have an entire formula reference guide over on my website. You can go to thomasjfrank.com, and in the Learn Notion menu, there is a whole Notion formulas link, and we'll also have that in the description down below. So check that out if you do want to learn how to write Notion formulas like this one. But for now, we are going to move on to our second example, and that is going to be the time tracking example that I showed in the intro of this video. So here we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of just automating to a single date property, we're going to automate to 2 different date properties. When we change our status property to in progress, indicating that we are starting the task, we're going to automate the started date property. And then by contrast, when we go from in progress to done, we are going to automate the completed property. And then we're using the same concept. We are writing a formula that's going to show us the task duration. And I have put the task duration in this format, powered by a pretty complex looking formula, because this actually will allow us to sort by the duration, even though what it's outputting here is what's called a string value, which is basically just a piece of text instead of a number. And the reason that we're doing that is right now, Notion formulas don't have like a time object that's super useful. So we could either output a number of seconds, which would get really large and be hard to kind of parse, or we could do this. So to set this up, we're gonna go ahead and create 2 different automations. And because I might not always want to be doing time tracking, I'm gonna demonstrate how we can build these automations so they only run if we create these edits inside of this little time tracker view of this tasks database. So once again, we'll head over to that little lightning icon there. We're gonna hit new automation. I'm gonna call this one time tracking, and I'm gonna go start, because we're making 2 of them. And then I'm gonna change the 4 pages in setting from tasks to specifically this time tracker view. And then once again, we're gonna do basically the same thing we did before. So I'm going to set the status. This time I'm going to filter it to just in progress as the trigger. And then I'm gonna set my started property to now as the action. And then to complete this, we're gonna make 1 more automation. We'll call this one time tracking completed. Once again, I'm going to set that to time tracker. And we're gonna do basically the same thing. This time I'm going to set status to complete as the trigger. And I'm going to set the action to the completed property, getting a now timestamp. So now we have two different automations that are gonna kind of work in tandem. And I've already got started timestamps here. I can actually start this one if you wanna see how that works. And cool pro tip here, if you are rendering a status property as a checkbox, you can actually hold Option or Alt on Windows and click the checkbox now, and that will show you all the options, which is pretty cool and wasn't available at launch. So I'm gonna set that one to in progress, and then that's gonna pop in our started value in a couple of seconds here. And then for check house for vampires, I started that at 4:15. I'm done checking the house for vampires, only found one vampire. He was pretty cool, didn't have to fight him off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and set that one to done. And in a couple of seconds, we'll have a completed timestamp and we'll be able to see our task duration, which was 2 hours and 2 minutes. And here's a fun thing. I can actually sort this view here by my task duration property. And as you can see, this little string format allows us to actually get that in the correct sorted order. So now I can see how long are certain tasks taking me, and that might help me to be more productive in the future, either delegating things or getting things off my plate that I'm not very good at. So that is one of the uses of time tracking. Example number 3 that we're gonna go over, and I always do 3s in weird ways. Usually I do it like this, sometimes I do it like this. There's all kinds of different 3 ways. Anyway, we're gonna do a little Slack notification example here. So basically this is a feature that will send a helpful notification to Slack when something happens in our Notion database. And here I actually wanna do 2 different triggers that are both going to trigger the exact same action, because remember earlier we had a page added trigger and we also have a page edited trigger. Well here, maybe I wanna get a Slack notification when a new task is created, and then I wanna get notifications as it goes through its different stages, like in progress and done. So to do that, I'm gonna head back over to my handy dandy lightning bolt once again. I'll click new automation. This one I'm just going to call Slack notification. And I will keep it tasks wide, so we're always gonna get notifications. And here we can actually set up 2 different triggers. So I'm going to first do the page added trigger. It's very simple. And then I can go to the plus icon here and I can add another one. And I'm gonna say when the status is updated to either in progress or complete, but not start, I don't care about that. I'm going to have that trigger as well. So when either of these triggers, I want to actually get a Slack notification. So you can see here, send Slack notification is a default option. And if you have your Slack account configured, you're going to see not only DMs for yourself, but also different Slack channels. So I've got a nice little Notion testing channel right there. I'm gonna set that as my channel and I'm going to hit create. And now if we create new tasks or move tasks to different statuses, we'll get notifications. So I'm gonna go ahead and create one right here. Once again, this time I need to check the house for zombies. They're always coming in through the basement windows. And I've sent my mom a birthday card. So I'm gonna move my mom's birthday card task over there. In fact, today literally is my mom's birthday. So that's not just a made up task. I actually did do that. And I'm gonna go over to my Slack. And in a couple of minutes, we are going to see those notifications coming in. Now, one thing that I have noticed is the Slack notification system is not the fastest thing in the world. In fact, if you build an automation like this using Pipedream or Make.com, those notifications will come in quite a bit faster, depending on how you set things up. Through this default system, usually it takes 2 to 3 minutes. So we're gonna come back to this Slack space in just a couple of minutes, and I'm gonna move right on to example number 4, and then we'll come back and we'll see those tasks in Slack. So example number 4, I think, is the coolest one. For a long time in Notion, we have wanted this feature, both me and a lot of people who have emailed into me, where when we create a project, we get a list of default tasks in that project. Because a lot of projects in our lives have the same kind of tasks inside of them. Like when I make a video, there's gotta be a research process, we gotta validate the topic, I gotta film it like I'm doing right now, we have to edit it, all that good stuff, and we might wanna have those tasks automatically populate in. We've had workarounds for that for a long time. A couple of months ago, Notion's button feature allowed us to actually click a button and generate those tasks. Now we can do it in a completely automated way where, as you saw in the intro, when I create a new project in this content projects database, we're gonna get all those default tasks and associate them with the project automatically. So I'm gonna build that, and this one is actually gonna be a bit of a lengthier build process because I'm gonna have many different actions for a single different trigger. So I'm gonna go to the lightning bolt once again, and actually I want to scroll up just a little bit so you can see a bit better. I'll do a new automation, and this time, first we'll give it a name. Let's just say default projects or default tasks for content. Everything is content now. And the trigger is just going to be page added to this database. But now for action, we can do add page to, which is something we haven't done before. And when we click add page to, notice that we can choose the database that we're in, but we can also choose any other database that we have edit access to. Now, put a pin in this in your head, because later on I'm going to explain to you why this can be dangerous if you're not being careful, especially when it comes to the edit pages in another database action. But at least for adding new pages, it's not too dangerous. Just keep that in mind for a little bit later. So for now, I'm actually gonna choose our tasks database, because what I want to happen is when a new content project comes into the content projects database, we get those automatic tasks. So selecting tasks there, I now have the do this, add page to tasks, and now I can actually set default values for the properties in that database. So I'm gonna name a task here. Let's just say do topic validation. And this is a little pro tip for YouTubers out there. Validate your topics before you go and spend 30 or 40 hours making a video, because sometimes you will bark up the wrong tree, like I've done many times, and realize there was a way you could kind of massage the topic or tie it to something else more interesting and get way more views. So seriously, do that if you are a YouTuber. But we can also edit additional properties here. So I'm gonna go with my, let's just here, assignee property right there, and I'm going to assign this one to me by default. And then the other one, perhaps the most important one for this example, is going to be our content relation. And if you're unfamiliar with Notion databases, essentially there is a tool called relations where you can relate one database to another, and you can have like a row in a database that's related to one or more rows in another database. That's how we get projects related to tasks. I have a whole Notion databases tutorial video, which I will link in the description down below, and there's a whole section about relations in that video if you want to learn more. But essentially here, we actually have this little dynamic value called this page. And this page refers to the page that actually triggered this automation. So if I click this page, whenever I create a new page in the content projects database, that's gonna be the page that becomes the relation value set for the new page I'm creating in tasks. So bada bing, bada boom, we've got a new page that's gonna be created in tasks for that do topic validation. But of course, and I can go ahead and create this, we actually are creating multiple different tasks. So I'm gonna have my editor go into fast forward mode while I create 5 basically identical versions of what I just did. So we get 6 tasks every time we create a new project. Okay, and as you can see, even though that was fast forwarded, that process took a little bit of time. So I am hoping that in this little 3-dot menu in the future, right next to delete, we get a duplicate option. So we can at least kind of like make a template for a one trigger to many action automation here, and then we could just sort of make that a lot faster of a process. But for now, it does take a little bit, but once it's done, you don't have to do it anymore, which is pretty cool. So I'll hit save here, and now we can actually demo this. And one thing you will notice is I have set a content template or a database template as the default here. So if I edit this, you can actually see we've got a list of tasks in there. It is filtered and sorted, and it's going to bring up all the tasks that are related to that content project when I create a new one. So first and foremost, I'm gonna go ahead and delete these ones out of here because I don't really need them anymore. And I'm gonna go ahead and make a new page. And in just a second, we should see those default tasks automatically pop in. Awesome. And one little pro tip I'll give you here, these actually tend to pop in almost reverse order. So I found that for whatever reason, the last one comes in first, or maybe there's some other weird sorting quirk. But to get around that, I have added a sorting criteria where the first criteria is due in ascending order. So when I go and set due dates, those will actually be in the correct order. But because we don't have due dates, it's actually going to defer to the second sort criteria, and that's created time in ascending order. And that gets us the correct order that we actually specified inside of the automation. And just like before, we can go into that page and we see all those same default tasks inside of the project, which is super useful because inside of the project is probably where we're gonna be doing most of your work. Okay, we put a pin in something earlier, and that was the Slack notifications. So I'm gonna go back to Slack, and there is send mom birthday card in progress crossed out, and there's done. And we have this new page, check the house for zombies. And there's also this helpful open in Notion button. So if you're working with a team and you're creating new tasks and you wanna make it easy for your team to get to those tasks inside of Notion from Slack, this would be a pretty cool automation to set up. All right, now we are transitioning over into the danger zone, and I'm hoping that Tony can get some sort of like copyright-free Kenny Loggins reference in here. Such a good song. Anyway, I want to talk about the final action that you have access to in this feature, which I think is potentially useful, but also potentially dangerous. And I think it is important for me to put this section in the video. That action is the edit pages in action. So I'm gonna go into this automation here, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So I've got a couple of automations already set up for this trigger DB database that I have here. And I also have a target DB right here. So basically, when something happens in this database, existing pages are going to be edited in this other database. Now, one thing to note is to build automations in Notion, you have to have full access permissions to the database where you are building the automation. However, if you're building an automation that has an action that edits a different database, you only need edit access to that target database. So do keep that in mind, but mostly keep what I'm about to show you in mind. If I set the status of this trigger row to trigger filtered, you're going to see some little text popping in here, and it's only going to edit the rows that have been checked off here. If I set this to trigger all, you're gonna see the same thing happen, but you're gonna see it happen to all rows in the database. And you can see why this might be problematic, because if you accidentally, or maybe somebody on your team accidentally sets up an automation that doesn't have a filter set up, you could accidentally edit the properties of every single row in a database. And imagine doing that in a database that is like a production database, one that you work in every single day that has hundreds or even thousands of rows. So when using the edit pages in action that I'm gonna show you in a second, be careful with it, especially because you can do this almost by default. You see this little nuke my data checkbox that I have here? If I go into my automations area, I create a brand new automation and I say where nuke my data is edited. For some reason, checkboxes don't actually give you the option for checked or unchecked. It's just edited, which I guess kind of makes sense, it's Boolean. And I do the action of edit pages in. I choose the tasks or the target database, and I don't do anything else, then look at what the settings are by default. There are no filters. We could set up filters, but by default, there are no filters, which means it's going to do the action to all pages in target database. And notice the default action. Name is set to untitled. So if I create this, note that I have all these nice little titles here. Maybe this is my blog database, and I click nuke my data. Then in a couple of seconds, I'm going to lose all of those titles. And I think that is a dangerous thing. Now, you can go into page history and you can roll back a database, but there are some problems there. If this happens and you don't catch it for 10 minutes and somebody else is working inside one of those pages and they're making edits, you could lose data there. So I almost want to say for now, don't use edit pages in, or at the very least, if you're working with a team, make sure you educate them on how this feature works, and probably ask them not to use the feature unless they are like the Notion architect inside of your company. Another good thing to do would be to make sure that your databases have their permissions set. I think by default, pretty much every member inside of your Notion workspace is gonna have full access. I think I can even show that here. So if I go to share, actually, I'm on a private page. Maybe I have a shared page inside of this. I do. So if I go to this Ultimate Brain for Notion automations template where we're testing some of our own automations through Pipedream recently, and I go to share here, I can see that everyone in this team space has full access, which means everyone in this team space would be able to create automations in a database. And all the ones we've showed for the rest of this video have been pretty cool, pretty harmless, but if we are creating one that edits pages in another database, you can have somebody accidentally set up an automation that does this. So I think first and foremost, ask your team not to touch that setting unless they really know what they're doing. Second most, and second, if I go back into, I think it's just this automation here, you would at least want to make sure that you set filter criteria so you know exactly what is going to be edited. So if I said I want to only edit the rows where archived is checked, now I'm working with a bit of a safer automation because now I've consciously set filter criteria to only affect the pages in the target database that meet that filter criteria. And in that case, if I did for whatever reason want to nuke my data, it would only nuke the ones where this and this and this were checked. Okay, rant over. Hopefully in the future we get like at least a warning pop up if there's no filters on that kind of an action. So Notion, if you're watching this, I think that should be added. Before I wrap this video up, I do want to go over a couple of additional points that I think people are going to bring up. So first and foremost, this is a feature that is primarily for users on a paid Notion account. If you're on a paid account, you can do everything I've shown in this video. If you're on a free Notion account, you won't be able to create or edit automations, but you will be able to duplicate templates that contain automations into your own workspace and then use those automations. Now, if you want to get into Notion automation, this is not the only way to do it, because Notion has a free and public API, and there are no-code tools like Pipedream and Make.com and Zapier, which will allow you to basically make automations just like the ones we've shown in this video for free using those tools. My personal favorite one is Pipedream.com. I'm actually making a lot of shared workflows that basically set up some really cool stuff. Keep your eyes peeled for the next video. You're actually going to be able to create tasks in Notion using your voice, even from an Apple Watch. So there are ways to create automations just like this one, even if you're on a free Notion account. It just involves using either the Notion API or those no-code tools which integrate with the Notion API. And if you are curious about learning the API yourself, if you want to dig into some JavaScript code and go along the path that I've actually gone over in the last couple of years, or actually just last year, I've got a full 2-hour-long Notion API tutorial, which will take you from soup to nuts, basically everything you need to know to build a really cool example project, learn a lot of code from a beginner level along the way, and learn the ins and outs of the Notion API. I'll have that link in the description if you are curious. The other big question I think that I'm going to get personally is, hey Tom, are you going to add these automations into your own templates? For now, we're going to focus on educating you, the viewer, on how to build these automations yourself. First and foremost, because these automations are often very personal, you're gonna wanna edit them, you're gonna want to tailor them to your own workflows, so shipping them in templates might not make sense. But another reason is Notion is likely gonna be adding additional capabilities to this feature in the future, and the fact that free Notion users can't edit those automations means every time that happens, we would have to ship a new version of our template, and people would have to try to migrate all their data. It would be a huge hassle. So again, for now, we are gonna try to just do tutorial videos and show people how to use these automations, just like I've done in this video. And in fact, if you already are in our customer community, if you've bought one of our templates like Ultimate Brain or Creator's Companion, we already have a brand new tutorial in there showing you how to set up the time tracking example that I showed in this video, but inside of Ultimate Brain, where it will be a lot more useful. So if you have one of my paid templates, if you've got Ultimate Brain, then you have access to that new series of videos, with the first one that's live today. That is going to be in the AI and automations chat space inside of our Circle community. And if you don't already have Ultimate Brain, well, if you want a complete all-in-one productivity system for Notion, that is what Ultimate Brain is. It is the system that I wanted inside of Notion ever since I started using it. I wanted to be able to track my tasks and my projects. I wanted to be able to take notes, to take book notes, even track my recipes for cooking, and I wanted it all in one place, and that is exactly what Ultimate Brain is architected to be. It is the system that got me away from juggling multiple different productivity apps and got everything for managing my life, essentially my second brain, as it were, inside of Notion. So if you want to give it a try, you can go over to thomasjfrank.com/brain. We have a full refund policy, so if it's not for you, then you can easily return it with no questions asked. But I do think you are really going to like it, especially given the fact that we have that customer community where we're now doing events. We actually just did a full event this morning showing people a sneak peek at that Notion voice tasks automation I teased earlier, giving them early access to it. But we also have full and active support there. I've got a team of Notion certified experts, and every question gets answered in our support spaces. So you will not be flying blind. You will not be flying solo like you are with a lot of other Notion templates out there. We also have tons of getting started guides and video tutorials. So it's really just a whole community that not only gives you these tools, but also helps you to level up your Notion game and get your questions answered and make sure that you do not get stuck. So once again, you can go over to thomasjfrank.com/brain to learn all about Ultimate Brain, see all of its features on that page, and buy it if you want to. And you can even use the code LetsGo2023 at checkout to get $50 off of Ultimate Brain right now. Like I said earlier, I've got a whole template that is actually free in the description down below, so you can try out all those automations that we went through in this video. Check that out if you do want to play with this feature. And I will put one of our other really cool automation videos on screen right now. So if you want to do something really cool with Notion automation, check that one out. I'll see you in the next video.